From engines that could barely lift a plane, to machines powerful enough to send hundreds of tons into the sky. From the first piston engines to today's high-performance jets. This is the evolution of aircraft engines. Over the past 100 years, aircraft engines have evolved through three major eras, and it all started with the piston age. Back then, aviation wasn't about mass travel. Airplanes were still a relatively new invention, and engineers, businessmen, and governments were racing to impress investors and build better aircraft than their rivals. Powering all this were piston engines, specifically inline designs adapted from the maritime and automotive industries. But aviation pushed these engines far beyond anything they were built for. At high altitudes and under constant stress, their heavy, complex cooling systems became a major drawback, adding weight, reducing reliability, and holding back early aircraft. To solve these issues, the rotary engine was introduced. Its simpler design cut weight and improved reliability, making it seem like the perfect solution. But it came with a serious flaw: powerful gyroscopic forces that could cause aircraft to roll unexpectedly during flight. That kind of instability was a deal breaker. If aviation was to succeed, especially in war and in the public eye, it needed engines that were not just efficient, but safe, stable, and dependable. As aviation headed into the 1920s, a promising engine would emerge: the radial engine. Its open design allowed it to be air-cooled, eliminating the need for heavy, complex cooling systems, making it a reliable and lightweight option. This reliability is exactly what engineers needed, and what made the radial explode in popularity in the 1920s, which helped gain public trust. It was used in early passenger aircraft designs and became popular with American fighter aircraft. It was durable and was able to take heavy damage and still be able to function. In Europe, however, engineers didn't quite give up on the inline yet. They believed that it had untapped potential, and they were determined to prove it. So they began experimenting with new configurations, like the V-type engine. Its slim, streamlined profile cut through air with far less drag than bulkier designs like the radial, unlocking higher speeds and greater range. By the early 1930s, that belief had paid off. V-type engines began dominating military aviation. Their sleek, streamlined profile made them perfect for high-speed, high-performance aircraft, and they quickly became the engine of choice for European fighters and fighter bombers. The United States soon followed, developing its own V-type powered aircraft, some of which would go on to become incredibly successful. Later that decade, superchargers became widespread in aviation, dramatically improving high-altitude performance and changing the game. By compressing incoming air before it entered the engine, they maintained a stable air-to-fuel mixture even at high altitudes. This allowed aircraft to climb even higher than ever before, flying above bad weather, cutting through thinner air with far less drag, and ultimately extending both their speed and range. Efficiency took another leap forward with the introduction of variable pitch propellers. By allowing pilots to adjust the blade angle during flight, these propellers could maintain an optimal angle of attack across different speeds and power settings, delivering better performance and improved efficiency in every phase of flight. As the 1930s came to a close, the roles of each of the two engines were clear-cut. Radials powered commercial aircraft, bombers, and rugged fighters, valued for their reliability. Meanwhile, V-type engines drove sleek, high-performance fighters and fighter bombers built for speed. It was a trade-off: durability versus performance. It became evident that the piston era had reached its peak, but that dominance wouldn't last for long. By the 1940s, piston engines were already pushing against their limits. Propeller tips were nearing the speed of sound, which caused violent vibrations and drag. This limited speeds to around 700 kilometers per hour and meant that militaries couldn't build faster aircraft that could outrun the enemy, and long-haul trips in commercial aviation would not get any shorter anytime soon. The piston engine had reached a ceiling, and that severely limited progress throughout the entire industry. It was clear that aviation needed something new.
What was that? What the hell was that?
That breakthrough came with the arrival of the Messerschmitt Me-262, the world's first operational jet fighter, and with it came an entirely new kind of engine, the turbojet. With similar piston engines, the turbojet works by drawing in air, compressing it, mixing it with fuel, and igniting it. The key difference is that the resulting high-speed exhaust spins the turbine, which in turn powers the compressor at the front before the remaining exhaust blasts out the nozzle to produce thrust. The result was revolutionary. Far greater speeds and smoother operations with a more streamlined design, free from all the complex pistons, rods, and crankshafts that defined earlier engines. At high altitudes where piston engines struggled, the turbojet thrived. But it wasn't perfect. Early turbojets consumed huge amounts of fuel, ran at extreme temperatures, and were incredibly loud. Still, the potential was undeniable. This was marked by a new era in aviation, the jet age. Later in the decade, the turboprop engine was introduced. It used a jet engine to drive a propeller, combining jet reliability with propeller efficiency at lower speeds. This made turboprops ideal for short or rough runways, where efficiency and reliability mattered more than speed. The turbojet eventually made its way into commercial aviation. Despite being loud and inefficient, it helped reduce flight times, enabled quicker trips, and more frequent schedules. What seemed like a breakthrough in speed and progress, however, would soon prove to be a costly miscalculation. As the jet age began to take shape, the turbojet was pushed even further with a major upgrade, the afterburner. By injecting additional fuel into the hot exhaust stream, it could boost thrust by over 50% almost instantly. First experimented with in the 1940s, it didn't become widespread until the 1950s as militaries all around the world began rapidly adopting jet-powered aircraft. It played a crucial role in helping high-performance fighters accelerate to supersonic speeds. But that extra power came at a cost. Fuel consumption skyrocketed, often doubling or even tripling, while already extreme temperatures and pressures pushed material science to its limits. However, it wouldn't be long until a new change came in and provided a solution to all these issues. This change came in the 1960s, when the turbofan entered the scene. While similar to the turbojet, the turbofan had one key difference: a large front fan that pushed a portion of air around the engine core. This bypass air produced thrust directly without burning additional fuel, making the engine far more efficient and significantly quieter since the bypassing air acted as a cushioning around the exhaust. Additionally, its lower exhaust velocity contributed significantly to the reduced noise. The easiest way to distinguish the two engines is with this. A turbojet produces most of its thrust by accelerating a small amount of air to very high velocity, which results in very hot, fast exhaust, low propulsive efficiency, and louder operations. While the turbofan produces much of its thrust by using the large front fan to move a large amount of air at lower velocity. This means less reliance on ultra-hot, fast exhaust for thrust, better fuel efficiency, and much quieter operations. Early turbofans appeared in the late 1950s and continued to develop through the 1960s, but they weren't yet dominant. Their popularity was accelerated in the 1970s.
I just couldn't imagine something like this would happen in America.
I'm in a line 2 hours in, I can't get gas. This is baloney.
In the 1970s, a global oil crisis triggered by geopolitical tensions and oil embargoes sent fuel prices skyrocketing almost overnight. For airlines, fuel quickly became their biggest expense. Aircraft powered by fuel-hungry turbojets were suddenly too costly to operate, forcing the industry to shift its focus towards turbofans. Speed was no longer the priority. Efficiency was. This ushered in a new age of efficiency. Due to its high fuel efficiency, the turbofan began dominating not just civil, but aviation as a whole. High-performance military aircraft began using low-bypass turbofans to balance between speed and efficiency. Efficiency was further improved with digital engine control systems, or DECs. These systems continuously monitor the engine and made rapid adjustments to fuel flow rate, turbine temperatures, and other control parameters to optimize for maximum performance and efficiency, all while automatically maintaining safe operating limits. This made engines both safer and more efficient. Digital engine controls became more widespread in the 1980s and 90s, when full authority digital engine control systems began replacing complex mechanical and hydromechanical controls. As impressive and dominant as the turbofan was in aviation at the time, it hadn't yet reached its fullest potential. From the 1980s onward, engineers focused on maximizing its potential. One thing that engineers focused on from the very beginning was the bypass ratio. Higher bypass ratios resulted in lower fuel burn and quieter engines. This meant that bypass ratios went from below 1:1 in the early 1960s to around 6:1 in the 1980s and over 10:1 by the 1910s. This led to major benefits. However, engineers couldn't just infinitely scale the engine, because a bigger engine also meant more weight. To manage this, engineers came up with intelligent solutions. The titanium fan blades were replaced with carbon fiber, making them lighter while still being very strong. Engine nacelles were made from lightweight composites. Turbine and compressor parts began using nickel-based super alloys that are strong but light and could handle much higher temperatures before failing. Together, these advancements allowed engines to grow in size without becoming prohibitively heavy. They helped transform the turbofan into one of the most efficient and reliable propulsion systems ever created. Today, the use of engines in aviation is incredibly diverse. Although piston engines no longer dominate aviation like they used to, they're still widely used in trainer aircraft and general aviation. Turboprops remain useful in regional and short-distance transport aircraft, and turbojets have mostly went extinct in aviation. Turbofans, however, continue to dominate most of modern-day commercial aviation. However, that might change in the future. The newly revised open-rotor engine design from the 1970s promises much higher bypass ratios and efficiency, combines features from the turbofan and the turboprop engines. The absence of the nacelle allows the bypass ratio to increase without the diminishing results of added weight. It promises to increase efficiency by around 15 to 30% compared to modern-day turbofans. A big deal in an industry where 5% increase can shift markets. It promises to be the next big revolution in aviation propulsion technology that will lead towards a more efficient and healthier future. There are many innovations in aviation engine development that I couldn't cover in this video because of time. I really hope you've enjoyed watching this video though. Let me know in the comments which advancements you think I should have included. And with that said, I'll catch you in the next one.